Here, at the edge of a rapidly unfolding future, humanity finds itself standing between two worlds that seem distant, yet are deeply connected. On one side lies ancestral wisdom, shaped by centuries of lived experience, oral traditions, rituals, and collective memory. On the other stands artificial intelligence, a creation of code and computation built to process information at a speed no human mind can match. At first glance, these worlds appear incompatible, one rooted in the past, the other racing toward tomorrow. Yet when we look closer, we begin to see that both are, at their core, systems of knowledge transmission shaped by human values and intention. Ancestral wisdom was never merely about preserving stories or honoring the dead. It functioned as a moral compass, guiding communities through uncertainty, conflict, and change. Elders did not simply recall the past. They interpreted it, ensuring that lessons learned through hardship would shape future decisions. In this sense, ancestral traditions operated much like living archives, constantly updated through experience. Artificial intelligence, too, is built upon accumulated data, patterns, memories, and decisions encoded into algorithms. It learns from what has been in order to predict what may come. The difference lies not in function, but in consciousness and responsibility. AI does not choose its values. It inherits them. Every dataset reflects human priorities. Every algorithm carries implicit assumptions, and every system amplifies the intentions of its creators. In ancestral societies, this responsibility was acknowledged openly. Knowledge was treated as sacred because it carried consequences beyond the individual, affecting families, lineages, and generations yet unborn. Today, as AI systems increasingly shape economies, identities, and even moral judgments, the same responsibility exists, though it is often obscured by technical language and corporate ambition. To understand the ethical future of AI, we must first recognize that technology is not neutral. Like ancestral teachings, it shapes behavior, defines norms, and influences what a society considers acceptable or dangerous. The meeting of ancestral wisdom and artificial intelligence is not a collision between old and new, but a reunion between memory and innovation. It invites a deeper question. If our ancestors were careful custodians of knowledge because they believed the future was always watching, can we afford to build intelligent systems without the same reverence? In this shared space between past insight and future power, the foundation of ethical AI is quietly waiting to be remembered. Long before circuits, code, and digital networks existed, human societies were already wrestling with a question that now haunts modern technology: how to use power without destroying balance. Ancestral communities understood that every action carried consequences that extended far beyond the present moment. Their ethical systems were not written in programming languages, yet they were deeply structured, tested through generations of survival, failure, and renewal. These moral frameworks emerged from an intimate relationship with nature, community, and time itself, where short-term gain was often sacrificed for long-term harmony. In many ancestral traditions, ethics were inseparable from daily life. Decisions were guided by respect for elders, for the land, for unseen forces, and for generations yet to be born. Wisdom was not centralized in individuals, but distributed across collective memory. Elders served as living bridges between past and future, interpreting inherited knowledge to meet new challenges. Rituals were not symbolic gestures alone. They functioned as ethical checkpoints, moments where communities paused to reflect, recalibrate, and reaffirm shared values. Through these practices, societies encoded restraint, accountability, and humility into their way of living. Crucially, ancestral ethics were designed to endure uncertainty. Without advanced tools to predict outcomes, communities relied on caution and moral foresight. The question was never simply, can we do this? But, should we? And what will it mean for those who come after us? This long view thinking protected ecosystems, preserved social cohesion, and maintained spiritual balance. Innovation, when it occurred, was absorbed slowly, measured against existing values rather than allowed to override them. In contrast to modern assumptions, ancestral societies did not resist progress. They disciplined it. Ethics came first, innovation followed. Power was respected because it was feared, and fear because it was understood to be irreversible. This ancient awareness offers a profound lesson for the present age. Before humanity ever taught machines to learn, it had already learned that intelligence without moral grounding leads not to advancement, but to imbalance, and that wisdom, once lost, is far harder to restore than any tool we might create. Today, artificial intelligence stands at a decisive threshold, possessing immense capability, yet lacking the wisdom to govern itself. Unlike ancestral systems of knowledge, which were tempered by ritual, communal oversight, and spiritual accountability, AI evolves at a speed that leaves little room for reflection. Algorithms now influence what people see, believe, buy, and even how they are judged, often operating invisibly and without clear responsibility. This concentration of power, detached from ethical grounding, mirrors moments in history when societies advanced technologically while neglecting the moral frameworks needed to contain that advancement. At its core, AI is not autonomous in its values. It absorbs human intentions, biases, and blind spots, then scales them with unprecedented reach. When systems are trained on flawed histories, they do not correct injustice, they automate it. Surveillance becomes normalized, efficiency replaces empathy, and decision-making drifts away from human accountability. In ancestral traditions, power was always accompanied by caution because its misuse threatened not just individuals, but the spiritual and social balance of the entire community. In contrast, modern AI development often prioritizes speed, profit, and dominance over reflection and restraint. This moment resembles the ancestral warnings found in many traditions, where imbalance arises when knowledge outruns wisdom. Stories of forbidden tools, broken taboos, and ignored elders echo across cultures, serving as reminders that unchecked power invites collapse. AI's rapid expansion raises the same question on a global scale. What happens when systems designed to serve humanity begin shaping it instead? When moral responsibility is delegated to machines, humans risk forgetting their role as ethical stewards. The crossroads we face is not technological, but moral. Humanity must decide whether AI will remain a tool guided by conscious values or become a force that amplifies human flaws beyond repair. Without deliberate ethical grounding, AI risks becoming a reflection of humanity's impatience rather than its wisdom. At this critical juncture, the absence of ancestral restraint is not merely a cultural loss. It is a dangerous vacuum, one that technology alone cannot fill. To move forward responsibly, humanity must rediscover how wisdom was once embedded into systems of power and translate those principles into the architecture of artificial intelligence. Integrating ancestral wisdom into ethical AI design does not mean romanticizing the past or rejecting innovation. It means restoring the discipline of moral foresight that once governed human advancement. In ancestral societies, every powerful role was surrounded by layers of accountability, rituals, elders, taboos, and collective decision-making. These were not obstacles to progress, but safeguards against irreversible harm. AI, as a new and potent force, demands similar structures of restraint and reflection. One way this integration can begin is by reintroducing long-term thinking into AI development. Ancestral ethics measured success not by immediate results, but by the well-being of future generations. Applied to AI, this perspective challenges developers to ask how systems will shape human behavior, dignity, and autonomy decades from now. Transparency, explainability, and accountability can be seen as modern equivalents of ancestral rituals, moments where power is paused, examined, and justified before it is allowed to act. In this sense, ethical review processes become the digital descendants of communal councils. There's also a symbolic dimension to consider. In many traditions, ancestors were guardians, unseen forces that watched, guided, and corrected the living. AI, if designed with ethical inheritance in mind, could function not as a master, but as a responsible descendant, carrying forward human values rather than overriding them. This requires humility from creators, an acceptance that intelligence without moral limits is incomplete. By embedding respect for human diversity, cultural memory, and spiritual consequence into AI systems, technology can be shaped to serve life rather than dominate it. Ultimately, integrating ancestral wisdom into AI design is an act of remembrance. It acknowledges that the most advanced technologies still require ancient virtues: restraint, responsibility, and reverence for unseen outcomes. When AI is guided by these principles, it ceases to be merely a tool of efficiency and becomes a continuation of humanity's ethical lineage, one that honors the past while protecting the future. Looking ahead, the future of artificial intelligence does not have to be a story of domination or disconnection. It can become a vision in which technology grows alongside human wisdom, guided not only by innovation but by memory. In such a future, AI systems are designed to support human dignity, preserve cultural diversity, and strengthen collective responsibility rather than replace human judgment. Technology becomes an extension of humanity's ethical consciousness, not a force that erodes it. When ancestral wisdom informs AI development, progress slows just enough to become thoughtful. Systems are evaluated not solely on performance, but on their impact on relationships, communities, and the unseen threads that bind societies together. Developers and leaders begin to see themselves not just as creators, but as future ancestors, individuals whose decisions will shape the moral environment inherited by generations to come. In this vision, ethical design is no longer an afterthought, but a sacred obligation. This future also redefines intelligence itself. True intelligence is not measured only by speed or accuracy, but by the ability to act with care, restraint, and foresight. AI, guided by ancestral principles, respects limits, acknowledges uncertainty, and leaves space for human wisdom to lead. It does not claim authority over meaning, but assists humanity in making more conscious choices. By honoring the past, such systems gain depth rather than control. In the end, the future listens to the past more than it admits. Every society that endured understood that survival depended on remembering what came before. As humanity stands on the threshold of unprecedented technological power, ancestral wisdom offers a quiet but enduring reminder. Progress without memory is fragile, but progress guided by ethical inheritance can endure. If AI is shaped with this awareness, it will not merely reflect who we are. It will help preserve who we are meant to become.